Sir, your wedding food.
What is this pizza? What is this pizza? I want Indian food! What's up guys? AJ with Special Occasions DJ and Lighting, Southern California's Indian wedding experts. Today, I want to talk to you guys about catering, specifically Indian catering. Most venues in the United States, specifically for Indian weddings, can't accommodate Indian food. So usually you need to find a venue that has a policy that allows outside catering vendors. So when it comes time to shopping for outside catering vendors to provide great Indian food, here are a couple things you need to know. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of how Indian catering works and a few tips. Since we're Indian, we all want to know, how much does Indian catering usually cost for a wedding? One of the major factors that divides up the cost in Indian catering is whether you want to have vegetarian only or non-vegetarian options available at your event. Another key factor is how many items do you want to have? How many main dishes, how many side items, how many condiments, and any other additional things like desserts. A typical vegetarian buffet at an Indian wedding will start at around $30 per head. Now there may be some additional options that you can add to this, like desserts and live food stations, that can change the price slightly. So a 300-person wedding in Southern California with an Indian buffet, vegetarian, will probably cost you between $9,000 to $12,000 per event. Now for the non-vegetarians, a typical buffet for about 300 people starts at around $45 per head. This can jump up in price significantly depending on some options that you want to have at your event. Some premiums like shrimp or lamb chops, we all love lamb chops, can jump up the bill significantly. Additionally, live food stations can definitely add a unique flair to your event, but also add a significant amount to your bill. We've seen it all. Fresh made donuts, In-N-Out trucks, live kebab stations, live puri stations, pani puri, naan stations, custom naan stations, ice cream. On average, most non-veg buffets, which include meat items and vegetarian items, typically end up around $70 to $80 a head per person. So on average, how far in advance should you book your Indian wedding caterer? Well, let's be honest. Your guests love you, but they love food more. So I would recommend booking your caterer up to a year in advance, especially if you have a popular vendor in mind, because they book up fast. For example, some of the top caterers in Los Angeles book up to a year and a half in advance. Some of these vendors in LA, they don't even have a restaurant. Their number one business is Indian weddings. Once you have a caterer in mind, one of the hardest parts is figuring out exactly what items you're going to order. A general rule of thumb is for a non-vegetarian menu to have 3 to 4 vegetarian options like palak paneer, dal, paneer makhni, and an aloo sabji. For the non-vegetarians, butter chicken is a must. Outside of that, you can look into some options like a lamb dish, a shrimp dish, a fish dish, or an additional chicken dish. Shrimp, lobster, sea bass. If your caterer doesn't flinch at this, he's definitely a pro. Well, what's gonna soak up all that curry? You can't forget about basmati rice, garlic naan, and don't forget, some people are on diets, low carb. You need a salad to eat it all down. When it comes to Indian weddings, vegetarians are definitely attending. So if you are having a non-veg menu, please try to separate your non-veg and meat items. So that way for elderly folks who can't see as clearly, can understand clearly where the vegetarian and non-veg items are. Oftentimes, if you put a non-veg dish next to a veg dish and a piece of chicken drops into your dal makhni, auntie's gonna be pissed. I've seen this ruin entire weddings. So if you can, keep them on separate tables. Speaking of vegetarians, you can't forget no pain, no Jain. Don't forget about the Jain buffet. For those of you who don't know, when it comes to a Jain buffet, there's no onions, no garlic, and also no roots. Long story short, if you're not sure, ask your parents if you need Jain food, and you don't need to have it for every single guest. Ask your caterer if they can have a small separate buffet with some Jain items if that's what you need. Usually 2 to 3 entree items is more than enough, as rice and naan from your main buffet is already Jain friendly. Here's a tip that's invaluable. Ask your hotel if they've worked with the caterer before, and ask your caterer if they've been to the hotel before. Because one common thing that's often missed is whether the caterer is allowed to use a clay pit or a tandoor outside the property. Here's another big tip. Some hotels and venues don't include chafing dishes as part of their outside vendor contract. What's a chafing dish? Well, it's that metal thing on the buffet that all the food goes into. So imagine a caterer showing up on the day of a wedding without any chafing dishes, and imagine the hotel not having them ready for your wedding. This is something that you always want to make sure is either provided in your caterer's contract or your hotel contract. If you have an experienced wedding planner, they should definitely have this on their checklist. However, if you're doing it on your own, make sure you contact your hotel or your caterer and make sure you get this clarified. Lastly, after-party food. A lot of people at weddings don't get a chance to eat at the buffet. In fact, two of the most important people at weddings, the bride and groom, often don't get a chance to eat. And after a night of dancing and drinking, at 2 in the morning, the one thing that you want is some food. Whether it's Taco Bell, pizza, an In-N-Out truck, ice cream, French fry buffet, anything will sound delicious at 2 in the morning. A lot of food is wasted at the buffet, but those late night munchies, they're always gone. We have a full write-up on Indian wedding menus on the link below. So if you have any questions or comments, please comment below. And don't forget, subscribe. Lamb chops.